Most, if not all of you know, Diesel 10 is my favorite Thomas character. Watch my video to see why. But there's someone who comes in a close second, this being James the Red Engine. He's always really fun when he shows up on screen. His ego in red paint tells you all you need to know about him. That he's a shithead. James is probably one of the most consistent characters in the show, while characters like Henry, who started out as an arrogant douche but had a soft side and meant well, turned into a literal wimpy baby who's scared of everything. Also, the person who voices Henry, voices Larry from Gumball, so, I thought that was a pretty neat thing to mention, because Gumball's, like, a really good show, and I recommend it, and, yeah.
It's you! Oh, you are a fool!
But James has stayed the same ever since his beginnings. Sure, he had a couple iffy episodes here and there, but overall he stayed consistent throughout. Although, there is an episode that I would say is the worst James episode, and is probably one of the worst in the show. This being Apology Impossible. After Big World, Big Adventures was introduced into the world, sadly, every character was flanderized. In other words, became one note. Percy went from a naive but kind-hearted engine to an actual baby.
Percy to the rescue!
Thomas started out as a little shit that went through a progressive character arc in seasons 1 to 5, and Magic Road if you want to count it, to just annoying. And James, he just kinda turned into a jerk. I mean, yeah, he was a jerk before, but he would always learn in the end. Now, he's just a jerk. That's literally all they do with him. And this episode explains that perfectly. So come join us as we take a look at Apology Impossible and see why it is the worst James episode. So, the episode starts with James rushing into Brenham Docks, and he runs into a flatbed that hits Philip, and somehow causes this one singular oil can to land on James's track. James, for some reason, blames all of this on Philip, despite him literally hitting the flatbed, and he also had his eyes locked onto it, so I don't know why he's blaming Philip for all this. Then Philip goes for a washdown to clean himself up, but James just kind of like spawns in and backs up in front of him.
My turn!
There's like a dude who's been there the entire time. You'd think he'd tell James to move out of the way, but I guess not. So Sir Topham had assigned James to take trucks of sardines, but nope, he just kind of lies and runs off, so now Philip has assigned them for some reason. Another thing, James apparently doesn't know what sardines are, despite working on the railway for like over 50 years now.
Sardines? What are they?
Remember when the fish in Thomas would be delivered in closed-off fans so that stuff wouldn't get in the fish? Good times. So Philip has to go over a bridge, but part of the bridge is being repaired, so Philip has to go on the other track. James, who's on the same track as Philip, doesn't hear or see this man screaming at the top of his lungs for him to stop. James and Philip have a near collision, and James again blames this on Philip. Philip actually stands his ground and talks back to James.
You've been unfair, and quite frankly, not very nice.
And a bunch of engines get held up.
Do you need a little push?
It's not me, it's Thomas.
It's not me, it's Philip. It's not me, it's James.
James tries to turn the blame back onto Philip, saying stuff like,
I don't make mistakes.
Then we get to one of those dumb dream sequence things where, because all the engines are on the bridge, they fall into the ocean, and this is the only good scene in the episode because they all almost drown, which I thought was funny.
My sardines!
I fell in the water.
Okay, that was a good joke. I kind of find it funny how Paxton is still a good character.
Someone could help me. Maybe? Please? Ow.
But they end up reversing for James, and look, it's my reaction watching this episode. You know it's bad when even the troublesome trucks give him glares.
This is ridiculous.
So James made them all late, and Fat Hat tells him to say sorry. And Philip immediately accepts his apology. He doesn't even look like he meant it. The second Philip accepts his apology, he tries to get away. Like this feels so forced. He then apologizes to everyone, and they're all happy, and it ends with them all laughing. I'm so happy right now for everyone. I love this era of Thomas. It's very educational for me. I've learned so much.
Really useful, man.
The reason why this episode sucks is because of James's character. As I've said earlier, James was a jerk in the seasons before Big World, even as far back as the model series. But he would own up to them and learn from it. Take No Joke for James for an example. He gets hot-headed and starts boasting to himself. He then lies about taking the goods train, saying he's supposed to take the express, not Gordon. This plan obviously goes south and he gets put in his shed. Afterwards, he learns from his mistake, owns up, and feels bad.
"I'm sorry I tricked you," said James. "Are these my cars?" "Yes," replied Thomas kindly. "They are pleased to have you back."
Or how about Make Someone Happy? He complains about his dirty jobs he's doing, but later on he learns from this by taking Miss Kindly on a ride to cheer her up.
You were quite right, Thomas, James whispered. Making someone happy does cheer you up.
Or hell, what about Dirty Work from season 11? James gets boastful and thinks his job is more important than helping his friends. After he realizes that they won't be attending the festival, he goes back and helps them out and makes sure they get there in time. All of these examples show that James is just more than a jerk, but this episode doesn't really show his other character traits. He's just the mean red one. He only ever cares about his paint.
Just a little scratch on your paintwork.
Oh, a scratch. A scratch!
And another thing, he bullies Philip for no reason despite him saving his ass from falling back in season 19. And that apology at the end was just not worth it. Like I said earlier, it felt so forced, like he was literally told to apologize instead of doing it himself. And everyone is just fine with this and laughs it off like it's the ending to a Full House episode. If you want to see this episode done right, check out the YouTube video with the same title, Apology Impossible, by MH1994. It's basically Diesel taking James's place, but it actually makes sense, and Diesel actually gets bit back in the ass.
The bridge isn't going to collapse. Making excuses as usual like that. Ah!
And the apology doesn't feel forced. Yay! Overall, Apology Impossible is the worst episode featuring James as a main lead. It totally butchers his character and just made him a complete asshole for no reason. I know other characters got it worse like Thomas, Percy, and especially Henry, but I feel like James just wasn't James in this episode and basically this era as a whole. So yeah, that's basically it. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and also stay tuned for other Thomas video essays I might do. Yeah, that's it. This episode made me want to throw James out a window, but yeah.